and it was about the last component of the legal systems around the world, which is the mixed or hybrid systems. And as we talked about, it's the mixture, which is the predominant way how legal systems work nowadays around the world. And this is important to understand, because in the international legal context, even though we see all these treaties and we see that customary law has a common agreement and commonalities on how we approach different rights. And let's talk about an example of taking someone's life, right? All over the world, that is considered a crime. But the differences come in the specificities of other type of behaviors. And that comes to in what is considered in some countries allowed for children to be disciplined at school by hitting them or by some specific punishments, which in other countries is not tolerated. And that's how we see all these differences come into play. But anyway, the relevance of an international system is that it pushes for an agreement of respect and changing and working on generating a positive change in those countries that still have specific behaviors as accepted or tolerated and which are clearly a violation of human rights. So in the next slide, I want to dive a bit more about what you will be seeing through this course in the upcoming sessions, because you will, and I believe that you already have that information with you on how a trial works in a Canadian court, what happens, right? What people expect and how things evolve. But going back to this international context and to have this view perspective on how the systems work around the world, when it comes to criminal law, we have, again, a lot of mixtures. But let's say that it is divided in general in two big differences. In criminal law, you either follow an inquisitorial system or an adversarial system. An adversarial system is what we find in Canada, is what the common law system follows. In contrast, an inquisitorial system is what you find in civil law systems, as in many Latin American countries or even in Europe. Again, I have to highlight that this is evolving, this is changing, but we want to talk about these differences because that gives us a bit of more perspective when we see in my home country, it was different. And I see that here, it's not that way. So what are the main characteristics of an adversarial criminal law approach? The hearings are public. That means that anyone can attend a hearing. They are open to the public. And as part of the court liaison program that IFRI does here in St. John, that's what we do, right? We attend these public hearings with victims to support them, and we can be there precisely because all the hearings are public. In contrast to the inquisitorial system, which all the hearings are private and no one is allowed to be there except the people involved in the case or in the trial. In the adversarial system, all the hearings are oral, and that's why we see that they discuss, and the attorney and the defendant's attorney, they explain the judge the situation in comparison to the civil law approach, which everything is written. You don't need to talk. You have to write down everything. And the problem with that approach is that at the end of the cases, you have files and files and files of written paper repeating the same, which is not very efficient. In the adversarial system, there's a presumption of innocence, in contrast to the inquisitorial system, that the person is assumed to be guilty unless they demonstrate the opposite. In the adversarial system, the preventive prison is promoted as an exception, only if it is necessary, because there's a danger, because there's a risk of the person not being found later, or even if the person could have some act that could hurt or themselves, then prison is necessary, right? As in opposition to the inquisitorial system, where prison is mandatory from the beginning, the person has to demonstrate that is innocent, and if that happens, then the person will be set as free or released from prison. And the last part of this comparison is that in the adversarial system, the evidence is presented in court, and in the inquisitorial system, the evidence is presented during the investigation. I don't know how the legal system works in the home in your home country or the country where you come from, but I hope this gives you a bit of more context if you have seen these differences when having these approach to the Canadian criminal law system. Any questions so far?
Octavio, I had a question. In the adversarial system, are there any situations whereby hearing the public is not allowed into?
Oh yeah, thank you for that question. Thank you very much. Yes, and that even happened. And let me talk here about my lived experience, because like I mentioned, I am not a licensed attorney in New Brunswick, but I can speak as a volunteer in the court liaison program. Whenever there are children involved, the hearings are not open to the public, or whenever the case is considered extremely sensitive, that sometimes the reasons are not disclosed. It's just that the doors in the hearing area are not open to the public. So yeah, thank you for that question. And because yes, there are exceptions, and it depends on the relevance. And again, from my experience, from what I have seen, when children are involved, which of course would put in danger their safety, or there are other type of concerns.
Thanks, Octavio. And I just a case in point, and I can talk about it because it's been in the papers, but I was in court a little over a month ago, and it was closed. It was in the King's Court. It was trial by jury, and it was closed to the public. The sheriff only allowed family and others that could, I think, because Elizabeth Fry helps in certain areas of the court, so we were allowed to go in. But it involved, there was a coach from Sussex, and the charge was child molestation, and so it was a closed hearing. So yeah, just to make it.
Thank you, Judy. Yes.
On context, so you may find that too, if you're supporting somebody, it may vary as to certain senses. Yeah.
And sorry, I had one more question on the inquisitorial, does that mean that there's no such thing as bail? So no one can pay bail and be out while they're waiting for the ruling
Yes.
case?
Okay, thank you for that question. Now, let's keep in mind that the inquisitorial system that is from the civil system, in order for a person in a case to be subject or be allowed for a bail, we would have to go to the criminal code and see if the code has a definition. Let's talk about, for example, theft. And sometimes it says, if from this amount to this amount, yes, the subject would be subject to bail. From this amount to this amount, prison immediately. So again, it depends. So the answer is yes, it is possible. However, it has to be clearly specified in the code.
For a question, my
Yes.
country seems to be like a civil law, but it has all the adversarial system things that you mentioned there, like public hearings and oral hearings, even preventive prison. So civil law and adversarial are like it's an exception, my country, or it works the same in different countries like that, because it is from Latin America.
That's a very good question, Luis, because what we have seen, and that leads me to that comment I made earlier about how the international law, and because again, let's go from this understanding that international law is based on customary law, but that has an impact in different countries. So I'm saying that because what we are seeing now is a shift. And I can say that even though many, and specifically Latin American countries that have an inquisitorial system are adopting elements of the adversarial system. So we can say that there's also a mixture. You are right. It's not 100, and that happens nowadays because it has been an evolution as part of looking for the respect of everyone's human rights, because there has been a discussion on why should someone be considered guilty from the very beginning, and why it's a violation of their human rights to take them directly into prison. So that is why many of these systems nowadays have shifted. And yes, they are going through a more mixed approach, which that is what we see specifically in Latin American countries. It's not 100% adversarial, but it's more of a mixture or a hybrid approach. I don't know if I'm answering your question.
Yes, thank you. Yes, good.
Okay, thank you so much.